All right, Mayor Faulconer, very nice to speak with you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Well, this is likely going to be, I think we're going to put this correspondence on YouTube, but this will be a basis for my town hall column for Friday. But I wanted to ask you about your tenure as mayor of San Diego, which is America's finest city for those who are curious. But it's also the 8th largest city, I believe, and it's the only major city right now until the new mayor comes in to be led by a Republican. So you obviously mastered something to win in San Diego, obviously. I want to hear about your tenure. How have things been going in your 8 years? And can you speak to kind of your legacy now leaving the post as mayor?
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. And I will tell you, I've really tried to set that tone since the very beginning on leadership and results. And yes, from a proud Republican in a majority Democrat city, it's about bringing people together and focusing on what I believe are common sense issues. And when you do that, not only can you win elections, but you can be successful governing. And you know, when I look back at, and I'll let the legacy question for others, but there's a lot of things that I'm proud of. You know, that we've been able to do in San Diego. First and foremost, the issue of homelessness. We're the only major urban county in California where homelessness has gone down over the last 2 years, double digits. In marked contrast, unfortunately, in other parts of the state where it's been exploding year after year by increasing by double digits. I've made a real significant effort on working to get folks, you know, off the streets, not just for a night, but for good. I do not allow tent encampments on the sidewalks in San Diego. If you do that, you're condemning somebody to die on your sidewalk. We're better than that as San Diegans, and we're better than that as Californians. And so as we've looked at some of the significant efforts that we've undertaken in terms of our bridge shelters, in terms of matching people with housing and permanent supportive housing, again, keeping in mind that, you know, my fundamental view is that every individual has a right to shelter, but if we provide that shelter, you have an obligation to use it. And I think that's one of the fundamental differences that we have here in San Diego versus other parts of the state on an issue that is absolutely one of the top issues in California. We have to do better, and we need to do better because people's lives are literally at stake. And I think while we still have a lot of work to do here in San Diego, we've been able to make a difference. And at the end of the day, that's incredibly important. I've really focused on infrastructure since I've been mayor. We just hit a milestone. We paved half of the streets in the entire city since I've been mayor. That is in marked contrast to past administrations. And I really, you know, we did this without raising taxes. And I did this and said that revenue growth in our city is going to go to the programs that actually we should be spending money on. So our streets, our libraries, our rec centers, the fire stations, common sense things. And as I said, I've really, when you look at, you know, promoting small businesses, growing our economy, a lot of what I've just been talking about, you know, it's about leadership. It's really not about partisanship. And I think that for you to be successful in a major American city and to be successful in a state the size of California, you have to offer a real competition of ideas. You have to go out and win the argument, then you can win the vote. And when you do that, you gain support across the spectrum. And at the end of the day, that's what's important, is to actually have real results.
Yeah, and you've had great success doing that, especially in a county, in a city that has trended more blue. I remember when I was living there 8 years ago, it was still fairly purple, and it certainly changed. And perhaps it could change in the future and go back to kind of its purple nature. But I want you to speak a little bit to your conduct and your approach to managing the coronavirus in San Diego. You've largely departed from the governor, some of your counterparts in Los Angeles, in San Francisco. What have you done without necessarily bridging people's right to do things safely, but all the while still prioritizing safety measures and social distancing and whatnot?
I think that's just it. That really is, how do you bridge that and make that balance? We have one goal: keeping everybody healthy and safe. And I spend a lot of time on outreaching in terms of all of the things that people should be doing. Obviously, wearing a mask, physical distancing, hygiene, and spending also a lot of time on helping to protect our small businesses. I mean, small businesses even in the San Diego, which is the 8th largest city in the country, small businesses are the backbone of our economy. And I think what you've seen is so much frustration that when people see, different sets of rules coming out of Sacramento seemingly every other week, this whipsaw effect, you're open, you're closed, you're open, you're closed. We've got small businesses in San Diego that have been open and closed 5 times. That's unsustainable. And again, people want to do the right thing. They want to keep their employees safe. They want to keep their customers safe. And so I've continued to advocate for listening to our local public health officials, because the facts on the ground in San Diego are going to be different than, let's say, Northern California, in a state the scope and size so big of who we are. And so I'm going to continue to advocate again to get us safely through this, and we will. Yet at the same time, ensuring that we are doing everything possible to ensure that when we get on the other side of the coronavirus, that we actually have businesses and jobs for people to come back to. And that's where I've really tried to make the efforts of what we've been doing in San Diego. And so again, as we've seen, and we're seeing cases increasing all around the state, got to say time and time again, everybody's got to take personal responsibility. You got to do the right thing, and you can't say that enough.
Yeah, because we do see, obviously, Governor Newsom, for instance, preach certain policies, yet break his own rules. And I think that's quite unsettling to everyone, regardless of your political orientation. Have you heard of many people, your constituents, regardless of politics, express that and express frustration where he's preaching this and then obviously doing the opposite and kind of undermining confidence with people, let's say, who are hurting the most, small business owners, sole proprietors, and others like that?
Well, I would say not just frustration, but real anger. Again, because so many San Diegans and Californians are really trying to do the right thing. And if you set the rules, you should be following them. And so that really takes away from public confidence that a lot of these rules are based upon science and that we should be doing the right thing. So those actions put public health and confidence in our institutions in jeopardy. We shouldn't be doing that. And so that's why I've been, so vocal about, making sure that we're actually focusing on what we should be doing to keep people safe. And I will tell you, when we talk about, for example, what's happening in schools in California right now, we essentially have a 2-tier system of schools, which is saying, private schools are open, but yet public schools are closed. That's unacceptable. We should be seeing so much more leadership out of the governor's office and the state to actually get policies that are going to open our schools. That's one of the most important things that we should be doing right now.
That's a frustrating policy, I think, all across the country, and especially in San Diego. Friends back in San Diego have expressed to me, or I've seen on their social media posts, how the schools can be opened safely and those measures can be taken, that a lot of kids are suffering right now. I think the percentage of failure has markedly increased. Students are not interacting with their peers. Teachers are missing out on lecturing and enlightening their students. So all around, it seems, that's issue that's, I think a lot of people are going to be.
And it's one that, because we've had the lack of statewide leadership, I've really tried to address head on in San Diego. And just to give you an example, I've had our superintendent, leadership of our local school board, representatives of CTA and the teachers in Sacramento. Like, what is it that we need to do from a testing program that will safely protect our students, safely protect our teachers? Because I can tell you, teachers want to go back in the classroom. I've spoken to so many of them. Distance learning, there's no substitute for in-classroom learning. We have to get students in front of teachers. We have to do it safely. We have to have a testing regime and program that will instill public confidence. And yet we haven't had that from Sacramento. So we've been developing one of our own in San Diego, and I think rightfully so.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see, because I think one of the regrets that a lot of lawmakers hopefully will have is just kind of the duress that they've placed on educational facilities. And we're going to certainly see that, like you said, this divide between public and private. and how these different drastic measures have really impacted learning and students' abilities to succeed in the classroom. And as a graduate of California public schools at the time, they're really good. I mean, in spite of a lot of the union rest and some of the others. But I remember in Southern California having a fairly quality-based education, and
I'm so proud of our public school system. I'm a product of it here in California, and again, what teachers want, what parents want, what students deserve, is leadership that will cut through some of the very tough barriers that we're facing right now, but come up with real solutions and a real objective with metrics. That's what's been lacking. We can't afford to allow that continue for very much longer, because kids are going to fall behind. That is the reality. Kids in public schools, to have, as I said, a two-tier system where private schools are open, but yet not public schools, that's not serving our state very well at all.
It can certainly have a lot of ramifications, indeed. I wanted to ask you a question beyond San Diego. What I observed here in Washington, D.C., and I think a lot of people were really taken aback by, not begrudgingly, but actually surprisingly and in awe, is that Californians, which are kind of mocked for kind of supporting bigger government policies, kind of these gargantuan large-scale efforts that restrict rights, restrict opportunities. California voters actually did quite the opposite with certain propositions. They voted in Prop 22 to allow the continuation of Uber and Lyft, obviously against AB 5. And then I think there was a measure voted down in terms of increasing taxes. Could you speak to that? And also the flipping of 4 congressional seats. So is Republicanism dead in California, or are we starting to see some bit of a kind of pushback to what is happening in Sacramento?
Well, it's very much alive and well. And again, what I think we pride ourselves out here as California Republicans is, a strong concern and connection for our environment, clean water, clean air, fiscally conservative, and going to be promoting job growth and a strong economy. And when you see the results of the recent elections, I think you hit the nail on the head. And particularly those 2 initiatives that you mentioned that I was very strongly involved with. Prop 15, which would have been the largest tax increase in California history, would have impacted every small business in California at the worst possible time, was defeated. And again, that's Republicans, Democrats, and independents who said, no, enough's enough. And then on Prop 22, our ability for our gig economy, and our independent contractors that are working for, rideshare like Lyft and Uber, it would have forced them out of the independent contractor business, which they want. And so Californians stood up and said, no, these are so many folks that want that freedom and want that flexibility for their own work schedule to help decide what they want to do. So I think this was a very much a bellwether election. And as you also rightfully pointed out, with some of these congressional seats that flipped, I think it sends a strong message. As you've seen the pendulum swing so far to the left, that these policies and candidates are out of touch with Californians, again, who want results, who want solutions. And as I've been pretty active over the last year, really outlining how one-party rule up in Sacramento over the last 10 years has not served our state well. It is time for a competition of ideas. It is time for new approaches. And it is time for policies that actually Californians will support and help their families get ahead, help us grow jobs rather than punish. And so I think when I look at the results just from last month's elections, I think they're very positive and really bode well for the future.
Yeah, I saw somewhere, I think it was the Los Angeles Times, where they somewhat endorsed a potential bid by you to potentially run for governor. Is that kind of in your plan? What are your future plans post-mayor?
No, I'm giving it serious consideration. And I've been very, very upfront about that. Again, because I believe we need new leadership in California, and we need it now. And look, I'm proud of the work that we've done in San Diego. I'm focusing right now on the transition. We got a new mayor coming in. I'm finishing up my term next year. But as I look to the future, as I look to the things that, as I said, we've had some success on, things that I care about deeply, like reducing homelessness, like a city that is safe, supporting public safety. I did not defund the police department in San Diego. We actually increased the budget because you want the best and brightest men and women out there helping to protect you, keeping us safe. As I look at what we've been able to do on promoting jobs and the economy in San Diego, look, we need to have that same type of energy and that same type of approach up at the state capitol. So, as I said, I'm giving that serious consideration because I think that people want that competition of ideas and they want to have a choice.
That will be an arduous task, but maybe because you've been able to bring different constituencies together, perhaps people will take a look at a potential bid by you and maybe give you some serious consideration for that. Because I know with the registration being overwhelmingly Democrat, it could be really hard for Republicans to kind of climb that hurdle. But if enough pushback happens and people want to change, perhaps someone like you who's managed one of the largest cities could perhaps undertake that task and bring some much needed to California.
Yeah, no, and I'll tell you, when you look at the demographics of San Diego, they absolutely mirror the demographics of California as a whole. Our Republican registration in San Diego is 24%, and yet I've been elected and reelected twice. Again, it's about providing energy and solutions that appeal to Republicans, Democrats, and independents, and knowing that somebody who's actually going to fight for them and give them results. When you do that, A, you can win in California, but B, you can actually achieve results in the face of a lot of pushback often. But look, I'm going to say it again. One party rule, what's happening in California is not serving our state well. It is time for change.
It's a very strong message, and I hope those who will be listening to this audio transcription will take that away from it. But Mayor Faulconer, where can people connect with you and keep in line with kind of your political journey, your next moves, and other happenings of yours?
No, I appreciate that, and like I said, I'm leaving office now, but obviously, follow me on Twitter and social media, and there'll be a lot more to come in the coming months. So I really appreciated the opportunity to join you and your listeners today. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And I think our town hall column will be pretty well received, given that California is in the news quite a bit. So I appreciate your time. You're a very busy man, and it's always nice to chat with a fellow San Diegan. I was for 3 years a San Diegan, but
thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it.